Welcome to Was It Good, the podcast where we discuss everything movie and TV related. Today we are talking Severance, Apple TV Plus's newest hit drama thriller directed by Ben Stiller. And we're also going to discuss why Hollywood is so obsessed with the workplace and getting people back into the office, perhaps. I'm Ravi, the host here, joined by
Mike.
Krishna?
I'm Michael.
And I'm Krishna.
It's difficult.
And we are Was It Good?
We are Was It Good?
There you go.
We did it.
It's fun. It's difficult when one of us is remote because I just kind of did this, pointing at both of you like a screen, and then you. Yeah, that was my bad right there.
Well, and then with the delay, by the time I was like, oh, he's not going, then I'm sure he was.
And then if you don't say anything, then there's just an awkward like, let's fill the space with dead air or what's going on.
Yeah, it's like a real office environment.
Exactly. Awkwardness,
Proximity
people
on a screen.
working. Now,
Cubicle life.
So obviously there's going to be tons of spoilers here. Christian hasn't seen Severance yet. Learman, you and I think are the only ones that are currently up to date on it. Our usual other host, Arjuna, is unfortunately not with us today. He's off gallivanting in the mountains somewhere.
Boston?
Oh, lucky him.
Yeah,
The mountains of Boston.
The mountains of Boston. I don't think Arjuna has also. I don't think he's watched Severance. But the one thing
I think he watched 1 or 2 episodes.
Okay.
Maybe. I think I heard him.
The one nice thing, though, I think about this show is, anyone can get into it because it is about something. If you're in your 20s, actually, if you've ever worked, right? If you've ever worked, ranging from, I would, argue, grocery store to like retail to traditional office setup to even potentially like this new kind of working world where it's COVID driven, where you've never met your coworkers per se, right?
Yeah, I'd almost say maybe more that than a grocery store.
Yeah.
But
But the thing with this show is like anybody and everybody can kind of like jump in and kind of relate to it.
not everybody should, though, probably.
Probably not. The show, again, spoilers. Christian, I'll just kind of give you the big kind of sexy hook, if you will, for the show. The big sexy
The
hook
5-second pitch.
is basically,
Pitch it, baby.
corporations for the longest time have always been about this. Actually, I would say in the last like 5 to 10 years, they've been about this idea of work-life balance, right? So this company decided, the easiest way to create work-life balance was to basically split the brain. And what I mean by that is when you go to the working environment, you forget your real life. And then when you leave the working environment, you forget the working life. So essentially, you're creating 2 different personalities that are geo-locked in terms of location. So the particular characters that we follow, mainly Adam Scott, when they go down this elevator, their brain essentially switches, if you will, to this other person. What they call their innie and then their outie. Outie being the normal person. And this is a way that this corporation can create this separation of work and then your life balance, if you will.
Although I get the impression they're not doing it for the worker so much, just for some reason for their own. But I want to say on that switch real quick. I know that's not the point of the show today, but like that focal length change that they do is fucking awesome.
Yes, yeah. That's genius.
And then I'm curious if they always shoot at a certain focal length outside and a different focal length inside the office. I haven't looked this up yet. And then I'm also really enamored with how dark everything is outside of the office and how bright everything is. I don't know. And then the pinpoints, is it just my TV or does everybody have like bright white pinpoints in their pitch black eyes?
When they're inside or outside?
Outside.
When they're outside? Potentially. I mean, there's definitely, from like a visual standpoint, when they are inside, everything is more geometric and symmetrical and just kind of cleaner.
It's
and
so
more put
evenly
together.
lit and open and bright, and then they go outside, everything's cluttered, and it's just faces with but I might have my contrast really bad on my TV. I don't know.
Yeah, check those settings.
Yeah.
But then even if your contrast is like really, really on point, then there should be still some kind of, I don't know, adjustment or something.
No, I think it's awesome. If they're doing it, I think it's awesome because I think it speaks to like I actually haven't figured it out. It depends on what the show's about because I'm not sure it's about office drama.
So that's why I kind of want to discuss, like, that's really the main talking point here. It's like office drama and the office space. Like, when I say the office, right?
Yeah.
What's the first thing that you both
Steve
think of?
Carell.
The Office.
With Steve Carell, right?
When you say The Office.
Yeah, The Office, right? And it's become like, I think especially in Western culture, I mean, actually, I would say specific to Western culture, that is, and the United States even more so, we think Steve Carell, The Office, NBC's long-time running 9 seasons, right?
I think it was 9.
9 seasons.
Yeah.
About the American office, working environment. That is kind of like one of the big, one of the big ones that kind of really like focus in on what like the working environment looks like and what it is. But what other shows, we kind of started to list last night as a joke in terms of other movies and TV properties out there that like also, bring up the working environment.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'd been missing it. Comes to mind. Office Space. Was that That's Office Space, right?
Office Space, yeah.
Livingston and Aniston.
Yep.
That's Judd Apatow, right? Too, right? No.
Who?
Mike
Judge.
Judge.
Mike Judge. Yeah.
I don't know why I confused those two, but I did.
Judd Apatow.
Judge Apatow.
Judge
Apatow. There we go. Yeah. I combined the names.
I always think of the spiritual successor, Parks and Rec. That was like, that wasn't like. It was like the workplace environment, right? Like I think you gotta be careful here because it's like you can start from office show and then branch out into workplace environments or working relationships and working teams. But I always thought of Parks and Rec as like the spiritual successor to The Office.
Yeah, it's like a governmental office.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other two that come to mind right off the bat are like two of the newer ones, Silicon Valley and Mythic Quest. Really good. I mean, Silicon Valley is HBO. Mythic Quest is also Apple TV, right?
Yeah,
Apple
Plus.
Plus.
Apple TV.
Yeah. So
I wonder what Apple has their employees focused on. They're all making office dramas.
Actually, funny that we're talking like workplace stuff. So earlier today or yesterday, so Apple has those kind of like fun short film / commercials highlighting their products. One of the first ones that came out were 4 individuals working remote, at the start of the pandemic and using Apple products. They've come up with like a sequel where these 4 employees have had to return to the office and they hate that they had to go back to the office. And then they like imagine, basically like, oh, we should quit. And then the whole thing is them imagining what that looks like and starting their own business. And then it ends with them being like, yeah, we should actually quit.
Oh, wow.
But it's fascinating because like Apple is one of the companies that have said or, I don't even know where they stand anymore because I stopped kind of paying attention. But like there was a whole discussion of we built this multi-billion-dollar spaceship thing. Please go and utilize it. Thank you.
Well, I did hear, and there is talk about like creative collaboration and all of that stuff for certain teams. So last I heard, Apple was very, let's get people back in the office. So, but I think just if I might go back a little bit, Krishna made an interesting point because I was thinking about our list that we made last night. We were talking about like Law and Order, and I guess the question comes to mind, like, are we talking? Like when you're thinking this episode, like office, like we're sitting at a desk at a computer, or like because like Krishna said, you could really branch out to just workplace, but then everything's a workplace.
Well, I wonder like. The whole reason I kind of like started thinking about this is like a lot of television, a lot of not daytime, but like a lot of primetime television, right? Kind of in my view breaks down to like 3 categories for the most part. And I'm talking primetime television like the the ABCs, the NBCs, the CBSs, right? Number 1, crime. Crime.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Law and Order, CSI, SUV, whatever they are, right?
So much crime.
There's
Judge
so much
Judy.
crime. So Judge Judy, right? I mean, that's more crime or daytime TV. Breaks down to that. Then there's reality TV type content, and then there's like action / sci-fi.
Oh, you band the action and the sci-fi together. That's interesting.
Well, the only reason is because you look like the big upcoming types of content or series has been like the superhero stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know, depending on who you ask, I think they'll be like, oh, it's sci-fi, oh, it's action, oh, it's a blend of the both. So that's why I kind of group the two together. But like the workplace stuff is like, it's all over the place. It's a very large category, right? Like we see these super franchises like the CSIs, the Law and Orders, right? And then we have like the more traditional, like, you know, quirky, like, oh, we're going to make a comedy show around, you know, a convenience store. Or, you know, we're going to follow, what is it, like even like Two Broke Girls, right? Which is about two struggling, are they supposed to be actresses?
Diner workers.
Yeah, but it's always around like the workplace stuff. And it's always there. And I'm always wondering, like, are we seeing so much of it because the most obvious is because, oh, it's something I can relate to.
Yeah.
But then I'm wondering, like, on a more cynical level.
Actually, so you want to know what the answer is, and it's really unfortunate. It's a symptom of just living in a capitalistic society. Not to go like super, you know, in that direction.
No,
but, because that's what our culture values is work, making money, getting ahead career-wise. So much of our focus collectively is on that. And unfortunately, I feel like the powers that be, that's the way they want it, right? I think the last 2 years has really highlighted that. Why is it over the last 2 years, CEOs and these billionaires have made money while everyone else has lost money, right?
We're bad investors.
Yeah, exactly. We're terrible investors. That's exactly right. So I think just so much of our lives, right? So much of our lives is dedicated to work. You spend at least 40 hours a week doing it. You see your coworkers usually, at least before the pandemic started. You saw your coworkers more than you saw your family. It's just ingrained in us, the workplace culture. So it just makes sense that TV would follow in that same vein. I don't know, Ravi, you might have been hinting at that maybe these networks and these entertainment venues are trying to brainwash us into, you know, work is life. But I think it's more of a symptom of just the way we live, rather than a conspiracy theory.
Or a synergistic mix of, promotion from one to the other that kind of combines into a perfect, promotion of work. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess you answered a question I have, which is, it seems like it's mostly office work. Usually, sometimes you'll go like, oh, we're at a retail store.
Right.
But like, can anybody think of like, hey, we're on a construction site and we work construction and this is a show about us framing houses. Not a home makeover show, but like an actual like.
Oh. Because what was that show?
Drama.
What was that show?
The Builder.
Not Bob the Builder, but there was that.
Bob the Builder. I mean, you make a good point. I haven't watched it, so maybe that is a construction.
No, but there was the
workplace.
one with the neighbor. Oh, fucking hell, not Home Improvement.
Oh, right, it was Home Improvement, but it was Tool Time was his show, but Home Improvement was the show that Tim Allen was on as Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah,
with JTT.
I mean, that's probably the only show that I can think of that's close to that.
Yeah, but even he was doing like a reality TV. He wasn't actually a construction worker. He was
That's
like
true.
doing I'm Bob Vila. Welcome to this old house, which by the way was a great show. But yeah, no, I was curious about that too. For the last 10 minutes, like how come we don't see a lot of workplace dramas, or at least I don't, that are outside of an office environment?
Well, that's what I was going to chime in. All the shows, for the most part, are sitcoms, situational comedies. So, of course, they're creating something we
Understand.
relate to,
Yeah.
where the drama piece is,
That's a good point. Like how often do we see workplace dramas? Well, maybe we see a lot more than I think, but like to Krishna's point and Lauren's point, there are a lot of like, hey, this is fun and funny to be at work and spend your whole life here.
Well, actually, I would argue that
yeah.
sitcoms, though, majority of them, it's usually like I hate my job.
Right, but in a way that's like, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's not like Severance is a good example. Where I mean, I don't know how much, obviously this last episode dealt with some pretty insanely serious topics. And
Yeah, they had goats.
yeah, they weren't ready either.
Get out, please
Get out,
leave.
get out.
Please get out.
I am enjoying the show so much, and maybe it was because I was 2 a.m. and kind of high. But
perfect.
It was kind of 2 a.m. and I was kind of high.
It was great. But no, I except for this last episode, I've watched it through twice already. But like, what was I getting? Oh yeah, it was interesting. I thought actually that this was maybe one of the more serious shows about an office environment. Whether it's actually about an office environment, I don't know. I think it has more to do with trauma than work, but maybe they're saying work is trauma. But we can get to there. But I just thought this episode was interesting because it was so heavy in one aspect, but it was also sort of the first time that it was overtly funny when they're like reading the quotes from the book and like his stupid.
Well, that's why I would argue that regardless of it ends up being that there's some weird lizard alien thing at the end and they're really the ones doing that or whatever. I still think the show is about the workplace because there's a lot of lines in there that we like. I think you and I, because we used to obviously work together for a big corporation, we have heard these same things regurgitated to us where it's like, we're a family, right? Corporations fucking love that stupid ass terminology.
Oh,
and
it's so many family members.
It's used in this show like quite a bit. Like we need to take a team photo because we're a family. Like we're all working at this together. If your little department all succeeds, you get a waffle party or some shit.
It's true. I have gold coins from things that I've done. Digital perks now are the thing.
NFTs,
kind of, but like no, literally, I give points to people, and somehow those points translate to something. I don't know what it is, but
wow,
that's interesting.
But yeah, so I do believe like it is a workplace. Like that's the whole point of it. Really, is the workplace, and then it's taking it to a more cynical level, right? Like there's again, Christian, big spoilers, and I still recommend you definitely watch it because you've worked in office type environments before, so you'll see a lot of things that you can relate to. But there's with this idea of like the innie and the outie, right? The person who is the innie is the one that is the working individual. Because you are kind of put there in the work environment based on your outie, so you're a real person. This one character doesn't like this, right? Because think about it from this standpoint. These people wake up and they have no memory of how they got there, why they got there, and then they're told to go and like work, right?
And then every time they're conscious, they're at work.
Exactly. There is no, like they physically will feel relaxed because, when they leave the work environment, they're sleeping. But when they're there, from their perspective, right, when they go in the elevator to go up and be done for the day, their perspective is always that's where their day ends and immediately starts back.
So it's like the doors close and I'm done. And then they open and it's like back to work.
But you are relaxed. You're ready to go.
Supposing your outie isn't an alcoholic.
Yes. Oh, I see. So you gotta treat these characters like each person
two
as two
different
separate
people.
Characters.
Yes, because when they separate them, it's really interesting. They're like two like it. This is why clearly it's about the office, but like it brings up so many questions of like, okay, so what makes you you? Like Helly, for instance. Helly is so Helly in both innie and outie, but they're so against each other.
Yeah, she's fighting herself.
She's fighting herself in such an interesting way, and it really highlights, I think, this idea of like, okay, so are they exploring what is the self? I think this is a great show that exploring what is it that is the me that looks down on the world and says, I am a part of what says I.
Oh man, that's great.
So,
I love that stuff.
I don't know, but so like the show really, to me anyway, goes into that quite a bit and it uses the workplace to do it. But that separation, I forget now. I got off track.
Yeah, no, the part that is horrifying with it, again, they're using common things that we hear, right? But in order for like an innie and an outie to communicate, the outie and the innie will record video so that the other person can see, depending on what the discussion, et cetera, is all about. And at one point, is it Ellen? How do you say her name?
Helly.
Helly innie wants to quit, but Helly outie has to approve it, and she keeps denying it. And eventually, the outie says to the innie, "You're not a person."
What
Like,
the
you're
fuck?
not a real person. And it's
What
like,
the hell?
yeah, so she's like fighting herself internally. But again, I still think it is all kind of like workplace driven, because if you forget for a second any of the other factors in our lives, like family, friends, any of that stuff, career, right, is a big thing. To Christian's point earlier about like Western culture and societies, like we are very career driven. And I would, some people will get upset if their career is not going a certain way, and they look down on like their career self or their life self. And there is that conflict of, what you were saying, like, who am I? Am I my career? Am I my, outie where I'm out partying or doing whatever all night?
Yeah. Well, that was the thing I was going to say, is it seems like, it also asked the question, or I was going to ask the question, which of them do you think is the real them at this point, right? Like Mark S. has been going for 2 years now, 2.5 years.
Yep.
Like, is The Office, because you spend, I think the show, like you said, not to get too long on it, but which one of them is the real them at this point?
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it sounds like, I haven't seen the show obviously, but it sounds like they're taking the idea that we are different people around different people. So like who you are with your family versus who you are at work versus who you are with your friends versus who you are alone. That's like 4 slightly different versions of yourself. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the show could be just taking that idea to an extreme. Potentially, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think that definitely, because we only ever see Adam Scott's character both innie and outie. The others, we've only seen their innies.
I was just going to say,
except
it's
for
weird,
Helly,
right?
Not really. Kind of makes sense because like we need a main character, and we need to see all aspects of that main character to kind of truly understand the story. But this also made me remember and go back to like, the main Office show, The Office, right? The Office and even Parks and Rec. The whole idea behind those shows were a documentary crew was following these people around. The first few seasons of The Office, you only ever saw them in the office. You barely ever saw them outside of the office and how they interacted and all that fun stuff. While Parks and Rec, right off the bat, was very much, we will follow you 24/7, and you got to see kind of more of them.
The home
both
life.
I actually have a question on that. To side tangent real quick, because I know at the early start of Parks and Rec, it was sort of panned as a bit of an Office clone. Did they do that right away, the 24 hours? Because I didn't get in on it right away. Or did they maybe do that to answer the first season qualms? Do you remember? Or did
for
they,
The Office?
No, for Parks and Rec. Because you were saying they did the outside of work. Did they do the outside of work from the very beginning?
For Parks
From
and
the very
Rec?
beginning.
Yeah, from the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very beginning.
Because you were seeing like what these characters were doing outside, but I guess also the other difference with Parks and Rec versus The Office, Parks and Rec follows a government organization, and government for the most part, when it's working correctly, does not sleep. Like it is supposed to be a 24/7 running thing.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. And you definitely saw that with like Leslie Knope's character, where she was doing like her regular 9 to 5, but then doing more outreach programs and things at the end of the day.
Overachiever, classic overachiever.
Yeah, big time classic overachiever.
Megatron.
While with The Office, it was very much 9 to 5. When it hits 5, you're kind of clocked out and you're done. So I mean that aspect, it makes it different, but it is kind of interesting to see those shows, and maybe this is where those shows fail, is where we only, especially in The Office, in the first few seasons, it makes sense we would just see The Office, but then they start branching out when they kind of start running out of ideas. To,
I mean, there's only so much you can do.
there is
in an
only so
office.
much you can do in an office space. Like, let's be honest. Like, you'll have the dickhead boss, the weird sexual harassments, the weird statements, and all that. It would have been
romance.
office romance,
Which is an interesting topic all on its own.
But don't forget too, that show was the remake of the British one.
Yeah, it was a remake.
So-
of
Was a
the
remake,
British,
yeah.
British
And that's
show.
a different work-life balance. Than
your
in the
mic's
US.
down, Lauren. We can't hear you.
Sorry.
Lauren was saying that the British workplace is different than the American workplace, and
Yeah.
there was already a translation there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, actually, it's interesting that the American office became a bigger hit than the British office, and I think that actually speaks to how we in America value work, and it seems like it's maybe more of an integral part of American life than maybe British life.
I mean, they do say that we're a very work-heavy culture, which seems weird to me because I
we
feel
are.
like we aren't. Like, from my perspective, I would not have, like,
But literally, your perspective
anecdotally.
is different.
Yeah, no, I'm not a very, whatever. So, but yeah, it's I guess that is us.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is like the pandemic. The pandemic definitely started getting people thinking, discussing this idea of why am I working so much? How is it that, working 80 hours is like a success story?
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's not like, 3-4 years ago, if someone was like, yeah, I work 80 hours, you'd be like, oh wow, your job must be pretty intense. And like, you must really own it and do it and whatever. And like now when I hear you work 80 hours, I'm like, you have probably really bad time management, or you're just kind
You're
of
stressed as hell.
You're stressed as hell, or you're just sitting around to make it seem like you are doing stuff and you're valuable to a company or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's very much like that should not be the way in which we work. Like way back when we were hunter gatherers, we worked so we could eat and survive.
Yeah.
And
Like
all
less
that.
than 30 hours a week, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, they were saying those people back then worked less than we do
Than
now.
we do currently.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane.
But they also didn't have iPhones, so I'm okay with it a little bit.
Yeah, the trade-off. 30 hours, no iPhone, or 80 hours in an iPhone.
But yeah, I mean, I remember reading an article a while back about that and how, I don't know if it's still as prevalent, but it used to be like this thing to be like, hey, how you doing? It's like, oh, I'm so busy. I got this, and it was saying like, you shouldn't do that because it puts yourself in a mindset. And are you really that busy? But it was, and it is. And I still sort of follow these YouTube channels where it's like, we got to get out and hustle, like Vaynerchuk.
productivity.
Yeah.
I love
Productivity.
Vaynerchuk with wine, but he's very, like, he's part of this culture, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like,
Hustle culture.
hustle, get up at 4 and like don't go to sleep till 1. And it's like, why do I want to do that? Like,
Right.
what are you happy? How?
So everyone's favorite reality TV star, Kim Kardashian,
Oh, yeah.
recently came out and was saying that the problem with the problem with people today is that they do not want to go out and work and hustle anymore, and that everybody like needs to go and have that hustle and whatever. The problem like with that kind of statement and the problem that a lot of these multi-million and billionaires are realizing is people do not want to work 80 hours a week for pennies on the dollar,
Yeah.
People, they're going to go for the most part and get a job because they need it to do X, Y, and Z. And if the job states 40 hours a week and that's what you're supposed to work and there's no overtime, blah, 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 you shouldn't be going and working 42, 43, whatever. And there shouldn't be this weird like, oh, Joe Schmo is working 43 hours a week. He's putting in the extra and giving me free labor. Maybe I'll consider him for a promotion or whatever. That's stupid. That's
Stupid.
the wrong way to do things.
Yeah.
And then also like having to work or also like being able to be reached when you're off the clock, via text or whatever. That's another one. That's why I like the Severance setup, because like once you leave work, you physically don't know who you work with, what you do, any of that shit. Like it is like the perfect work-life balance.
For you. What about Ravi R, though?
Oh, the one working inside? Fuck that guy.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's what I tell my work self every day. But no, not really. I kind of enjoy my job now. But I was going to say, all I hear there is, have you heard about my Lord and Savior hustle? Like, it's just one more
Yeah.
thing. Like, everybody needs to do what I do because I do the right thing. And that's
Well, that's like
so egotistical.
What is it?
Yeah.
First person
yeah.
Syndrome?
or main character syndrome.
Main character, but yeah, something confirmation bias-ish.
Something of that.
Something
nature,
like that.
yeah.
We're scientists.
100%. 100%.
Sociologists.
Yeah.
Center
But
of the world.
center of the world. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fitting for her. But yeah, that's interesting. So it makes sense from her worldview because she came out of the not discount clothes, but she was the Kardashians got famous running a store where people sold them their used designer clothes, and then they would sell the designer clothes back, and they had that as their reality show. And so she got famous through hustle and wiles.
I thought it was the sex tape.
Well, she had to hustle to
And-
get there.
But,
Oof.
but their dad had $30 million also defending
Yeah.
OJ.
Oh yeah, the super secret hustle sauce is have parents with lots of money.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
all
that's
of those
why-
hustlers, Vaynerchuk, Kardashian, they all got money from somewhere, but they don't tell you that because it's just a little bit of $1 million or $2 million.
And it's all the way like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these guys, these rich people had, most of them, not all of them maybe, but it seems like most of them, had money to help them get their start. So it's rich, excuse the pun, coming from them.
I will not.
Just work harder. And honestly, it's manipulative because for them to be where they are, they need people under them working hard.
Yeah.
Being robots, churning out their products and doing the labor. So it's just the whole thing stinks.
It's MLM.
Coming from people like that, to be honest, that message.
So if you
And it hurts everyone.
Yeah.
If you were like one of these big networks, like here we're gonna give you a whole writing staff and all and everything you need to come up with your own office-like drama, what would you come up with?
Severance.
I was gonna say
I mean, I
Severance
wish-
feels like
I
a
wish
really
Severance.
good Severance feels like a really good fuck this idea of working 9 to 5 and fuck this idea of work and life balance and all that stuff.
It really hits all the things that I'm into right now, which is self, identity, workplace crap, and weird. What's the term I'm looking for? Not otherworldly, but Lovecraftian in a way. But there's this idea, I don't know, on the map of, not to get too into the details of spoilers, but the map that PD makes right at the top is mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really have this, and with Irving's Dreams of the Goop, it's in the entrance too. I think that there is some sort of old gods type of control. You play Control?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking is at the heart of this. It very much reminds me of the game Control, if you've played that.
I mean, it kind of would make sense that maybe take it one step further. Maybe they're just playing a simulation or something.
Yeah. I some of the stuff I read, it makes me think, and I think if we didn't have Heli R also having that Audi in there, part of me was thinking maybe this is some sort of multiple personality and that it's not an actual workplace, but that each of these characters are an aspect of Mark while he's at work.
So he doesn't even have necessary coworkers.
Right.
It's just him playing it out.
Because the work they do is so nondescript and surreal. There's so much about the show that is real, but there's so much about the show that's like,
so they have to
that's
go,
not right.
basically, Christian, they go through, they're given a big, they have a monitor and there's a bunch of numbers on there, not in any kind of particular order. It's all very random.
it's like a word search
And
where
you
would
move,
circle.
you move your cursor around until you feel something in the numbers, and then you collect the numbers and put it in a bin.
So I was doing a little reading. I don't know if you know about this, but so when they're in the Hall of Perpetuity and you hear Keir talking about, he's like, I've discovered the 4 tempers, and it's dread, something, something, and something. And one of the shots.
I love that.
Well, no,
the
the reason I
details, man.
remember
Love it.
dread is because that's the one they start with. You
Right.
scary numbers.
Yep.
So there's a good chance that this has something to do with the four tempers, with Dread, Wild. The reason I remember Dread is because that's the only one they've touched on the numbers. But there is a shot where they corral the numbers into one of 5 bins, and one of the things pops up, and you can see 2-letter abbreviations that stand for each of those tempers, if you were to know that those tempers existed.
So there's that, the CEOs and the family that's behind the company.
Yeah,
and they have like very in-depth philosophical ideas about working, and they also have paintings throughout the facility as well that all also have very distinct kind of symbolism, again, behind working in the working environment. And then Adam Scott's character, his brother-in-law, also comes out with a book about the working person. And the book is filled with very stupid quotes where it's like, the word in between industry is dust.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's like in between industry is the word dust. Or like you starts with, I don't know. Anyway, but one thing I forgot to mention that I think is really cool, and I think along this line is shit, I forgot it. Never mind.
So the one question I have about this show is, so Ben Stiller,
Yeah.
right? He's known for very over-the-top comedies.
He did
Like Zoolander.
well, and also Cable Guy.
Cable Guy.
I think he directed Cable Guy. Did he?
So when
Anyway.
I think Ben Stiller, because he also wrote a majority, if not all of this, like this is his baby.
Well, no, he didn't write this. This is a guy, Dan. Oh, that's what I was going to say,
Yep.
is work is religion. The guy who wrote this
Yep.
came from a cult. And I can really see that in the way that this is.
Okay, see that part,
Oh,
that
wow.
makes sense. Work is a cult.
Well, and on that, why I think you missed why his character does Severance is because he lost his wife in a traumatic car accident, and he needed to be distracted at work.
Likely
It's-
due to his alcoholism.
But that's why people go join cults, is when something's happened and they're looking for a higher being.
Mm.
And I think that's the flip side of work is it the distraction piece, and why like he wanted this so he doesn't have to think about his wife.
I wouldn't be
in the
surprised.
accident.
Oh, if he caused the accident?
Oh, well, yeah, if he caused the accident, but like what she's saying there, I wouldn't be surprised if this takes that a step further and actually like manifests a sort of shit. Man, it's so early.
Shit. I love it.
No, but something she was. What were you? Remind me again what you were talking about, Lauren, because I was in it when you were talking about it, and then
That
The trauma.
He's using this like as a distraction.
as a distraction.
Or
Yeah.
actually to not be distracted because the grief was so overwhelming that he was constantly distracted with it.
Right. Oh, yeah, and he joins the cult because people oftentimes join a cult looking for answers and something to reason behind it. And yeah, I think probably what they'll end up doing is, instead of it being like, oh, well, this is a cult where you do things for no reason, it's going to turn out, oh, there is actually this being that causes us to work or something. I don't know. That would be weird.
So workplace as a distraction.
Workplace is a distraction, but like there's some sort of alien or interdimensional being that's causing us to work. I don't know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called,
So-
to
it's
Christian's
so-
point, it's the capitalists.
Capitalists. Yeah.
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 They are the
our
beings,
gods.
the interdimensional beings.
But yeah, I do see a lot of this to the paintings. Like the paintings have a very like Renaissance type of feel, religious look to them, like you would see in maybe a Mormon church or something. So I do think there is a lot of the aspect of work as a religion of sorts, and how we. I mean, each person also, how they worship at
Right.
work. You got, oh, I love perks. Oh, I do it because I want to adhere to the rules and be the best that I can be. I hate that I fall asleep. They really hit the nail on the head with the archetypes.
Right.
Going back to what you said, where you can only do so much in an office environment because there are only so many types of
yeah.
people.
Right. So, we've kind of discussed like work is all over the place, right? Like we naturally have a work-life balance problem. We want a career problem / who are we problem. And then when we come home to relax, we see it on the television. Like work is just really, really in our faces all the time. But that could sometimes be a good thing, like trying to spin it forward in a positive light. So like maybe you watch CSI and you're like, I want to be a CSI.
I did actually want to do that, but it's not as fun as the show.
Have you guys ever seen a show where it's shown like a working environment where you've potentially been like, maybe I could do that, or that's kind of interesting? CSI?
Yeah. I mean, like in a way, I was too old to really actually want to pursue it when I was watching it, but I was like, man, that would be really cool.
When I was younger, mine was I think it was a USA show where it was about the Air Force and lawyers. Jag, yeah. Jag. That made me want to like fly air jets because like that's cool, and then I could be a lawyer in the evening.
FBI after X-Files. That was something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to be in the FBI.
Nice.
Ooh.
Krishna?
Ooh. Honestly, I never really. The only Office show that I ever watched and was like entertained by was The Office, Parks and Rec. Those are, I think, the only two. I might be wrong. Like,
what about Triple
Silicon
Frontier?
Valley. Triple Frontier is about a mercenary group,
right? That's a working environment.
Trying to circumvent the working environment. They're trying to get rich quick because they don't like working in traditional jobs. So they are, trying to get rich, and that leads to some of their demise.
Well, that's an interesting thing you bring up, because you could say that the hustle is a sort of they sell it as a get rich quick thing, but it's not quick or easy. And Triple Frontier sounds like they worked real hard for the easy money.
Yep. And it backfired
like the hustle
in their faces.
Yep.
Spoiler alert, Ben Affleck dies.
Damn it, I haven't seen it yet.
Really?
I didn't even watch the was it good about it because I wanted to go in fresh. So now whatevs.
Oh, I really thought Ravi and Arjuna had you convinced to never watch it.
No, I really have wanted to watch it. I think I started it and I didn't get 10 minutes into it before I was like, oh, you got other things to do.
So I spoiled nothing.
No, you didn't. I'm kidding.
So it's interesting where like we have, I would say like, our parents watching primetime TV, us watching primetime TV. It's very much about traditional working environments. In this day and age where there are things like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and short form content, a lot of the youth are being exposed to now wildly different ways of making income. It is not the traditional go to an office 9 to 5, get your paycheck. There's, hey, make and sell weird apes as NFTs and you can be a millionaire.
Did you buy a weird ape?
Be a YouTuber.
No, I have not bought a weird ape.
So
I would have to have another conversation with my fiance if I did that, and I'm pretty sure I'd be like shit out of luck if I bought one of those fucking $10,000 weird apes.
I mean, it's funny, not funny, but interesting you bring it up because my brother's a middle school teacher, and he says that he sees a lot of the kids when they grow up, they want to be TikTokers or YouTubers. YouTubers.
But that's the thing. There's like, I watch a ridiculous amount of YouTubers and they're vlogging lifestyles and like camera reviews.
You have a vlog.
We have a vlog on our Was It Good channel as well. But it's
very good vlog.
Thank you. It's interesting because it gives you a different perspective or another idea of what else you could be doing, for a career, for work, for income, etc. But the big difference, right, is that YouTuber who goes all in to make the YouTube video or whatever and do their own business, etc. They are working 100 hours plus a week.
They're working all the time.
They're never.
But the difference,
never stopping.
I would think though the difference is they get to choose what they work on, right? Like you go to an office, you're working for someone.
Right. I don't know.
Whereas the allure maybe of these alternative careers is that in theory you'd working for yourself, right? So maybe you have more creative control. You get to you're the decision maker. You're the boss. You're the CEO of your own time.
I feel like that's the illusion that is sold, but I don't know if you get that. Maybe to some extent, but you still, if you're going to make money, if you're going to be the next PewDiePie PewDiePie. Is that
PewDiePie!
still a relevant person?
It's still a relevant person.
You know, like last I remember, he was making like $7 million a year. If you're going to do that, you're probably not solely making just what you want. Like you're making what corporations want you to make for them.
Like
Maybe.
selling like ads or sponsors, right?
Sponsors.
Like
Sponsors
content.
are like a big thing.
Yeah.
Peter McKinnon recently has been. He's always done this kind of weird thing where he'll go through his stint of like sponsor video, and then he'll kind of go back to like, how do you do filmmaking, and like have these more in-depth conversations and more interesting videos around like how to make content, what is content, and bigger picture things. Right now, he's on this this whole thing around a documentary that he started shooting in 2019 about is it Angels and Airways?
Yes.
So he's shooting a documentary for them, and he thought it was going to be very kind of quick and easy to turn around and burn, very YouTube-y, but it's like a full feature documentary, so it's taking him a long time. But through his like discussions and everything, he was kind of recapping like his last 5 years on YouTube, and like in order to like make it career-wise and be able to do that full time, he had to like put on sponsors and affiliate links and all of that fun stuff, and awkwardly interrupt every video where it's like, and today's sponsor, Squarespace, and like be happy about it. And sure, it pays the paycheck and gets them the money and all that, but at the same time, like a lot of these like in video ads that you see, they're very kind of painful to watch, because you're looking at this person just read off a script, and some get creative and have fun with it and enjoy it. Some definitely look like their souls have been destroyed.
I don't know. I just fast forward through them.
I do fast forward through a lot.
Don't do that though.
But I guess the question is like, is that worth like that 2-minute pitch and losing your soul, if you will, compared to like that 9 to 5? Which one's worse? Which one's better? Like,
I would say for the people who've chosen it, it's better, right? Like,
yeah,
there's a trade-off somewhere, and for them, they decided doing a 2-minute ad in their video is absolutely worth it. For them, it does beat the 9 to 5 cubicle.
Yeah.
So
Here's a question.
Yeah.
No, carry on. My ADHD.
No, I was just gonna say it just
got me
depends on who
interrupted.
you are and what you like.
Yeah. Do you think we need to work as a species? Is society dependent upon work? Is that a lie? Should we be? Yeah, some people probably really get benefit from it. A lot of people probably get benefit from it. Productivity is not necessarily work, though.
true.
Right.
So, like, say we institute a UBI. Is a UBI bad for humanity, or?
So they've done studies. They've already tested this out in a couple of like cities and small closed areas. Like they've also done things where they've tested like 4-day work week and 3-day and all that fun stuff. And COVID has also been like a massive kind of real world
Fuck you
experiment.
to the workplace.
not experiment, but like a real like fuck you to the workplace idea. And I don't think there is a just flat yes or no answer to it, because to your point, like some individuals, they need structure. They need to have that. And partly it goes back to like when a child is born. And I'm talking specifically to the United States, because that is what I know. It's like when a child's born here, from an early age, they are thrown into structure, right?
Yeah.
You wake up, you eat breakfast, you go to school, you go through school through, this and this years, you do this big SAT thing.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, that whole thing. So you're very kind of like thrown into a structure. And I remember like when I got into college, I had trouble with that, because college is very much like, okay, Wednesday you have one class at 9:00, and then fuck off, do whatever you want. And it's like, okay.
I will do that.
I will do that. Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
What do you mean I failed college?
How much is this costing again?
Say again?
How much is this college thing costing again?
I mean, when I was there, I thought it was bad. Now it's fucking unbelievable.
God,
it's incredible. It's crazy.
I'm still paying for not graduating.
But I mean, that's bad. But to the whole point of like structure and everything is like we put ourselves into college, we rack up this massive amount of debt, and then when we're done those 4
You
years,
have to
5
pay
years,
for
whatever,
it.
you have to pay for it. So then you're now forced to go get a job in order to
Yeah.
pay for it. So it's a problem that starts, I think, at day one, where it's like, what is this person that's coming to the world? What are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
They're a drone.
How do they
They're drone
contribute
to
to
make
society?
Right. That's the other big thing too, is like contributing to society, and does that have to be through the forms of like work?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because as things get more automated too, you know companies are looking to automate things so they don't have to hire people, right?
Yeah.
Like Uber, just assembly lines, almost anything. I think there's a couple of retail stores now. I think a couple of Walmarts that have robots that go around asking, "Do you need help?" So we're moving, and companies want to move toward that because ultimately it should be cheaper for them to automate everything. So I think down the line it's sort of inevitable that work will become unnecessary, and then at that point we'll have bigger questions. It's like, what do people choose to do with their time?
The
right?
biggest question will be like, if work is fully automated and everyone's just living on a UBI,
Yeah.
Does that mean like our kids, like 2 generations from now, they discover The Office and like, what the fuck is this?
I mean, yeah, it's like the
it's
kids.
super foreign.
Have you seen the kids with the tape players, or like they don't know what it is?
Yeah,
But I think it brings up. I mean, to Krishna's point, automation is a real, I think, danger. Now, people say that we always find a new industry to work in, but let's say we do find a situation where, I think this is a real problem. You see it with digitization. Like, take books, for example, right? The cost of a book is due to the supplies for the paper. You got to have the paper. You got to have somebody to bind it. You got to have somebody to print it. All of these things. But you have a digital book. It's a copy of a copy. It no longer has any kind of material. Like, there's no limit to what it is. So it's no longer valuable beyond what we'll pay for it. So I think we've already seen books dropping in price. You see Apple and Amazon were warring a while back about setting the cost. And as automation and digitization grows, you're going to see, I think, a lot less artistic careers. You'll need UBI for things like movie making and whatnot, because movies won't make as much money if you can just copy, like
if you can automate parts of it,
if you can automate part of it, but also like if you don't have to have the film to do it, or it doesn't have to be, you have to artificially limit the supply somehow, because there is no actual limit to the supply to a digital file.
And real quick, UBI is Universal Basic Income. I don't think we said what that is. Sounds like we're talking about STD.
What's it good has a very intelligent audience. I assume that they're very well versed in that, but good to clarify.
Yep, clarify that. It's not an STD. It's a Universal Basic Income.
But I think we'll run into some dangers possibly. Like, I mean, UBI is interesting for me as somebody who's an artist, because it's like, oh, well, it would allow me to pursue artistic ventures, and they say that, and maybe that's what would happen. But what if you're not able to make money off of writing a book? How many people will end up writing a book? I think you could argue that you'll get a lot of more passionate based, like, people who just want to do it because they want to do it. But I think to try and tie it back to our conversation, I want to ask, what do you guys think workplace dramas will look like in the future as we move to more automation and as this anti-work thing takes off, right? Like, we're starting to see people who are like, I'm not working for $5.50 an hour. And do you think we'll see an interesting shift?
I think we have kind of started seeing it. Remember I said at the beginning, like, there are, to me, 3 pillars of like primetime TV: reality, the workplace, and then like action sci-fi. So the workplace and action sci-fi already has been combined in Star Trek Lower Decks. The whole idea behind that show, it's an animated show, obviously, but the idea is like you're seeing the working crew of a ship as opposed to like the front runners, especially like early on, like the first season. We definitely kind of saw like, what did they go through? What do the people that basically have the ship running, what do they do? And like, it's a fun fantasy kind of viewpoint on the workplace. And I think that is what we're going to see more of, not necessarily like in specific like sci-fi Star Trek situations, but like kind of more like what if situations and you know, maybe alternative histories and stuff like that, or like maybe even like thinking ahead to like future jobs, like what does a sitcom on the moon where they process minerals look like?
As a clone who doesn't know he's a clone, stalking to Kevin Spacey as a robot. Hilarious movie, by the way.
Great movie.
It's not funny, but yeah. No, I think that seems right. I am curious to see if we start to see any kind of like anti-workplace shows.
Well,
kind of like Severance.
Severance, I think, is like Severance to me is going to be the new like staple of anti-work stories around the workplace, just because it is so. It definitely at parts feels kind of like very like fantasy and like, oh, that doesn't seem possible. But at the same time, I feel like, yeah, it could be possible. Like there could be a company out there developing and thinking, how do I shut my employees like fucking memories off and like make sure that like there is no idea around like workplace rebellion and all that. And that again, like, you know, maybe Jeff Bezos is also watching this show and thinking to himself, this is a fucking brilliant idea. If I can separate the employee's brain and the person inside the warehouse has no idea about the outside world, and the person who is on the outside, to them, they're getting a paycheck and they're not even working.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds alluring as fuck.
It sounds great, yeah.
Like that, to me, is like, I mean, potentially I would be into that idea.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, it sounds like I think the big mistake is not just like resetting the brain every day so that they don't have a memory of the fact that all they do is work.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, gosh, that's scary. Forgive me for the harm I've caused this world. I can see that at Amazon a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, that's for another time.
Yeah.
That whole situation. Well, wait, hold on. So there, if we're not getting too long, so there's scenes in there where you go to the break room, which definitely sounds like break as in we're going to break you, not you get a break. And they make them do weird things, like basically psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm.
What does that correlate to in the workplace to you? What is that? Is that got an allegory?
Participation events.
Oh shit! Wow, I was not even thinking about that.
Like a lot of corporations like those things where it's like we're going to do a group building thing together, right? Like my last like big corporate workplace, our group building things were when recruiters would get us shit faced at happy hour. That was fine, but like thinking back to it now, it was very much like you're drinking and you're being fed corporate garble, right? You're not necessarily just drinking for the sake of drinking. It's you're drinking and you're being fed something, right? That's what I think. Yeah, basically brainwashing. And that's what I think the break room is a representation of, to the extreme, where it is we're going to do these like fun-filled events, but it's really we're shoving corporate shit down your throat.
Oh, wow.
Maybe training videos as well, like all the training you have
videos
to do like every quarter.
Yeah.
Or like, corporate
which is
BS. Like we have like we make the world a better place. So if I don't, like I think, all of those I think are sound great.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Before we get out of here, right, just to end it here nicely, your favorite workplace show or movie, and it doesn't have to be traditional like an office working environment. It can also be a little bit out there if you want.
I'll go first, and recency bias galore. I'm going to say Peacemaker. It's not a traditional workplace, but it's definitely presented as sort of a workplace, the team dynamic at least. And you have the manager and Myrn. You had Adebayo being on the team and everyone questioning her credentials. So there's like a lot of workplace stuff in that show. So, and I love that show. I just finished it the other day. You guys were right. Fantastic. Amazing binge. I mean, just watching an episode a night for like a week straight, it was fantastic. It was my favorite part of the day.
You could only do one episode. I mean, when I first heard about it, it was already, I think, halfway through. So I did like all 3 or 4 episodes in one day.
Yeah, I did the first
Yeah.
3 like immediately with my brother. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it because it was, and it's a good point. It is got a lot of office workspace, which begs the question: do we just everything we do? Does it bleed into
It's
it?
occupation. We're very occupation focused.
I think it might be. Like I was watching. I was just flipping through the like cable TV the other day, and Oblivion with Tom Cruise was on.
Oh yeah.
And that movie, like the main point of that movie is like an alien race coming and invading, but like it's presented to start with him and his like coworker going and having routine and checking in and working together. And they also had like psychological checks from corporate to make sure that their working dynamic was still useful and good.
Didn't they have a saying too? Like something about we're an effective team.
Yeah, an effective team, yeah. And so like to that point, like, yeah, everything I think is related to fucking work. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Like it's like scary thing.
Yeah. I guess like it's if you took like a step back, it's like its story, right, needs like characters need motivation, and I think the strongest motivation you can probably find is like your purpose, right? And if most people put that purpose into making money and career and stuff, I guess it's inevitable that it just bleeds into almost everything.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately.
The question is maybe though work is actually more a reflection of life and not the fact that we bring work into everything, but work is the one place where we don't get to pick who we hang out with. So normally our friend circles are people that we relate to in a comfortable way. So work really represents the world as a whole and a microcosm because it's all types of people for the most part. I work in IT, so like I get a certain type of person, I think. I don't know. I think I don't know if I have any answer in my mind, but yeah, it does. I wonder if it's work bleeds into life or if life is just represented in work.
So do you have you don't have a favorite?
Oh, I think I hate to say it. I don't, but I hate to say it. I think my favorite right now is Severance. We'll see how it ends.
Yeah,
but like,
it depends on that ending.
I have I've watched it twice already, and I probably will watch it again.
That's pretty sweet.
It's crazy, but yeah.
I think mine is going to be Monster Inc.
Oh, really?
Just because it's a fun animated like representation,
and it is.
It is, yeah. And it goes back to like what you guys were saying earlier, like what does the future hold for like the workplace or like TV movie and everything, and like Monsters Inc. is kind of a nice representation of like we see the familiarity in terms of like what a workplace dynamic is, but then it's added to this kind of like well the monsters in your closet, what does that actually look like? So I think that is like a really fun kind of like way to see what things will come.
Yeah. No, I like that. And it's also one of those like, what if these types of people had a job like I did?
Yeah, exactly.
What if goats went to the office?
And with that, that's going to do it for us here on Was It Good. As always, you can find us on social media at Twitter at Was It Good, on Instagram and TikTok at Was It Good Pod. Our full episode podcasts and VODs get dumped on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wasitgood. Our website, wasitgood.info, has some really good blogs and some fun posts, so definitely check that out. Our next pod will be in about a week, so definitely follow along on social to figure out what we're discussing, because I don't think we figured it out. And Limerman, thank you for jumping on and joining, and Lauren, thank you for producing. Arjuna will hopefully come down from the mountains of Boston soon and can rejoin us.
With his big, long beard.
Yes.
He's parked in the car park.
Car park.
I've never been to Boston.